What up is Marcus Dynasty Dads? We still have this DeAndre Swift signed jersey. We're going to give that away at $2K. I was in Vegas for the last 3 days, so I need to catch up on some fantasy football stuff. We have Carson Wentz moving, Amari Cooper going. We're going to get into the depth of Russell Wilson because we did a brief reaction, but there was more to it, including Noah Fant going the other way. Mike Williams, and then you got Adams, Gesicki, Schultz, all being tagged. Let's start right off the bat with Carson Wentz going to the Washington Commanders. It seemed like the Washington Commanders were a team that was desperate in need for a new quarterback. We have reactions to the Indianapolis side. We have reactions to the Washington side. This is a huge get for Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin, of course, now actually has a competent quarterback besides the Washington, basically Washington, Carolina, Denver. These were all teams that just desperately need a quarterback. Carolina still has yet to get one, but they could be in the front runners for maybe like a Deshaun Watson or something along those lines. But we'll get to Terry McLaurin. I believe this does impact Terry McLaurin's fantasy dynasty value. It does bring him up a couple spots. Even if you look at me and tell me, okay, Terry McLaurin or DK Metcalf, that gap has now been almost shrunk to nothing because DK Metcalf is stuck with Drew Lock, and now you have Terry McLaurin with Carson Wentz, who showed competency in throwing to Michael Pittman, and you saw that Terry McLaurin is going to be a guy that you saw Taylor Heineke. Taylor Heineke actually gave Terry McLaurin actually good fantasy games. So where's Terry McLaurin lying? He's a wide receiver 2 and a high wide receiver 2 in Dynasty. He's going to have, he's still a young wide receiver in his mid-20s. And if I'm losing my voice, this is all just Vegas talking. So what does this do with Carson Wentz? It doesn't really do much for Carson Wentz. He's a lowish end quarterback 2. He's going to have weeks that he's a bye week fill-in, super flex again. Would I rather have Carson Wentz or any of the quarterbacks in this 2022 class? I think Malik Willis is probably the only one I would rather have. But besides that, Matt Corral or Kenny Pickett or anything like that, I would rather have Carson Wentz, which just shows how bad this 2022 class is when it comes to super flex quarterbacks. And what does this do even for Michael Pittman? I think this is a huge decrease, if I can actually talk. This is exactly Vegas. I think it's a huge decrease for Michael Pittman. I think this is a huge thing that hurts him because now that he doesn't have a quarterback there at Indianapolis, we'll see if they try to replenish it with somebody else, whether it's in the draft or whether it's through free agency. I know that they've already been very, very vocal on Love and Garoppolo and Kirk. So there's been 3 quarterbacks out there that have already been potentially interested from the Indianapolis Colts. Man, this is, if you've ever gone to Vegas, it is a long 3 days. I think I got like 12 hours of sleep in 3 days combined, but it was super fun. We did a lot of gambling, and we had a lot of walking sodies. All right, the next one is Amari Cooper to the Browns, and I got this one, I believe, when I was at the airport coming back from Vegas. But Amari Cooper, what does this do for him? And actually, really, I don't think it does much for him. When you look at the Cowboys, he had a smaller piece of the pie, but you still had Schultz, and you still had Lamb, and you still had Zeke out of the backfield, Pollard out of the backfield. You had Gallup for most of the season last year. And then he goes to the Browns team, which Landry's already potentially seeking a trade, and so you have no one. And you could say OBJ didn't perform potentially very well, or he didn't perform well at all being a Cleveland Brown. And so why would Amari Cooper succeed? He's succeeded in every single year of his career. He is that perfect wide receiver 2-ish on your team, and he's still young. So he still has a couple years till he's going to be 30 years young. And so right now, Amari Cooper's in that prime age of his career. The biggest thing is he's been very up and down with his production, but you look at the end of the year, and he's always over 1,000 yards. He's always got like 7-8 touchdowns. That's Amari Cooper for you. And he's one of the best route runners. He's a very, very good wide receiver talent-wise. And there's even been times where I look at Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and I go, wow, they are essentially at the talent level very, very similar. Just CeeDee Lamb is 5 years younger, and so that's why CeeDee Lamb is a top 5 dynasty wide receiver, and Cooper is in the mid-teens. And so Cooper will still continue to be a successful successful wide receiver. I think Baker is going to be the biggest concern, but I think that he is going to be hyper targeted. You're going to have a bigger piece of the pie. You're just going to have less production per target. So he might have 30 more targets than he did in 2021 versus 2022, but he might have very similar production on a per game basis just because those targets aren't going to be as high valued. Just going to be a little bit lower valued. But I like to chase volume, and I like volume. I actually like the situation of being a bigger piece of the pie versus not. I would like a season like Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, but the touchdowns are going to be the biggest key, and I do think Cleveland can move the ball enough with Chubb, with potentially with Hunt, and whoever else they're going to have on that offense. I really think that's going to be I think it's going to be a fine situation for Amari Cooper. Russell Wilson going to Denver. Everyone is skyrocket up for Denver. I do want to put a little bit of hesitation on Albert O. I think he's a tight end 14-ish. Where does that see in fantasy? Well, when you're from tight end 7 to 17, it doesn't really matter. So you're not going to overpay for Albert O. In my opinion, you should not. I think Russell Wilson is going to use him like Gerald Everett. And how did you like Gerald Everett last year? He was up, he was down. I think this is a huge up for Sutton. This is a huge up for Judy. It's going to be hard to try to buy him now. They're going to be both top wide receiver. They're going to probably right into that, sneaking into that wide receiver 20 range for redraft. And for Dynasty, Judy's going to be moving up a ton, and so is Sutton. They're both young wide receivers, and they're both under contract for a couple more years. So you have this situation where they're not going to go anywhere. And Tim Patrick is actually somebody that I would prefer buying, because Tim Patrick is somebody that has shown to perform well, even with Drew Lock and with Teddy Bridgewater. And so if you can't buy either Judy or Sutton, buy Tim Patrick. I think that he is somebody that is going to be a lot less valued. I'd rather have Tim Patrick over a third-round rookie flyer at this next upcoming draft. And I think Tim Patrick is actually one of the perfect buys in this situation. Fans, again, he's in the 7 to 17 range. He was one of my Dynasty cornerstone tight ends. He's going into his 4th year. He's still super young. He has that high draft capital, that high pedigree. He's still with Locke probably, unless Seattle goes after like a Deshaun Watson type or anything like that. So Seattle is probably going into this more of a rebuild situation, especially with cutting Bobby Wagner and everything. So that's what they're going down. DK Metcalf has the biggest hit. He's that deep ball guy. Even Tyler Lockett has a huge hit down too. These guys are really falling off the map here, especially Tyler Lockett, he's getting into that age where we start to want to sell these wide receivers like right now. And DK Metcalf, unfortunately, just the situation, you're going to have a lot of frustration, I think, with Drew Lock, or unless there's a different quarterback that ends up coming in. But this is an offense that I'm not going to want to have many pieces in. And it's just unfortunate for the Seattle offense. Mike Williams gets re-signed by the Chargers. I love this move. I hate this move for, again, Josh Palmer. It's why I actually told people to sell Josh Palmer. There was that rookie wide receiver threshold points in a season, points per game. Josh Palmer didn't hit it. He was one of the guys that I was immediately selling. I understood his draft capital was there, but even talent-wise, I was like, yeah, he didn't break. When I watched him video-wise, even going into the 2021 draft, I was like, just Josh Palmer does not seem like a very appealing type of player. He's going to have these games where he's probably going to have 500 yards in the season. It's just not going to be what you want. And they're going to give it to Josh Guyton, and they're going to give it to other wide receivers as well. But Keenan Allen, Mike Williams is a bigger buy here because he's going to have another. Re-signing with Herbert is going to be a huge benefit to Mike Williams. And you saw that he had the beginning. If he can put more of a season together, that beginning part of the season shows his upside. And I love that type of upside from a wide receiver like Mike Williams. Devontae Adams, where is he at? He's still at the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. He's just into that 7-8 range. He can't move over Tyreek Hill. He's not going to move over CeeDee Lamb because he's getting closer to that age 30. And again, he's 1 year. 1 year. We'll see how long. If they work out an extension, even if it's 3-4 years, he's going to get older, 31, 32 years old. He's going to have 3 years of production. And so that's why Devontae Adams is not a top 5 Dynasty wide receiver. Mike Gesicki, 7 to 17, closer to 7 than 17 when we talk about the tight ends. Dalton Schultz, really close to 7. He's probably the only one that in this group that I'm actually saying, okay, well, he could make that jump where he could make that Goddard jump where he's tight end 6. You even saw last year he was a top 5 tight end. And so he actually has the opportunity at Dallas, especially Amari Cooper gone to the Browns, where he could be almost like his own tier, where he's not an elite tier, he's not Andrews. Maybe he's more into that like Hawkinson range, because Hawkinson is not into that elite production yet. He doesn't produce like Kittle, does not produce like Andrews, and Pitts has that ginormous ability to be the tight end one in Dynasty. So we have this kind of, what's what we got? So really, we got Andrews, we got Pitts, we got Kittle, and then it's like the kind of the next tier is Kelsey because of his age, not because of production. Kelsey, Hawkinson, and so it's like, well, where do we start? Who else do we fit in there? Did I say Pitts? Pitts is another one if I haven't said it. Whatever. Yeah, Pitts, Andrews, Kittle. Yeah, and then we got Hawkinson, Kelsey. Do we have Dalton Schultz that fits in there? Do we have Goddard that fits in there? There's going to be one or two other tight ends, and Dalton Schultz has that chance to kind of fit into that category. Man, I am losing my voice. Whew. All right. Do we have anybody else? Did I write something else? What else did I write? I think that's it. I wrote scribbles on there. Man, Vegas was super fun, but that takes a lot out of you. So, yeah, it's Marcus Dynasty Dads. Thanks for listening to my half-voiced rest of my video. Peace out. Take care.